Massachusetts special election. Of course, late Senator Ted Kennedy vacated one of two Massachusetts U.S. Senate seats. And the two candidates right now to replace him are Martha Coakley and Scott Brown. Coakley, the Democrat, and Brown, the Republican. Here in Massachusetts, there are some polls showing that it is close. Nationally, there's some polls showing that it's close. You wouldn't think that there was any chance a Republican would win Ted Kennedy's Senate seat, would you?
Well, in Massachusetts, you never know. Long history of Republican governors.
Mitt Romney, absolutely. Given the situation and how strongly the state supported Obama, you would think that it would be unlikely. But some are saying that, hey, this is not Ted Kennedy's Senate seat. This is the seat for the people to choose, and Scott Brown might actually win. I don't like either candidate, I'll be honest, but I am going to vote for Martha Coakley just because I think if you replace Ted Kennedy with Scott Brown, you're essentially saying we are committing to no healthcare reform, period, especially since after the 2010 election, the Democrats could lose even more seats. And at this point, Scott Brown, if he replaces, or rather if he takes Ted Kennedy's Senate seat, would essentially mean zero is getting done with healthcare, would it not?
Seems that way.
At the same time, Brown is a guy who posed naked in an issue of Cosmo. And some people are trying to spread that around to make him less attractive to Republican voters. I don't think Massachusetts Republican voters care at all that Scott Brown did this nude layout in Cosmo magazine. I just don't think they care.
I'm sure some will.
You think it'll affect some votes?
Oh, for sure, yeah.
It could be. Again, I don't really like Martha Coakley. I'm getting tons of requests to phone bank with her. I'm not going to do that. I think she will be mostly ineffective as the 100th senator on the totem pole based on her personality, based on her background. But at least it will be a vote close to how Ted Kennedy would have voted on health care, which is a huge issue.
Right. I mean, that's all perhaps me and you can hope for.
At this point, there's not much else.
There's a lot more Republicans in this state than a lot of people think.
And there's a lot of unregistered as well that will vote Republican when they're upset with whatever's going on. And I'll tell you right now, nobody is particularly happy with Barack Obama, at least on some level. More Fox mistakes. They've had recently pie charts adding up to over 100%, polls adding up to over 120%. They showed the cover of the book Going Rouge, which made fun of Sarah Palin rather than Sarah Palin's actual book Going Rogue. They constantly mislabel Democrats as Republicans and vice versa. They even showed footage of a protest from a year before when discussing a supposedly packed Tea Party rally a couple of months ago. This is the latest one. They were talking about Joe Courtney. First, they referred to him as a Republican from Connecticut. Then they said, oh, actually, he's a Democrat. And then they also labeled him senator when he's actually a congressman. They just, I tell you, I watch all the different news networks in preparing for the show, probably about an even amount. Fox really seems to make more of these mistakes than anybody else.
I don't know. I mean, it just seems like, perhaps they're just hiring the wrong people. Managers aren't getting the job done, production managers. I don't know.
I don't know what it is, but for whatever reason, it's happening over and over and over and over again. Gay marriage. In the 1970s, homosexuality was a crime in the country of Portugal. And a lot has changed since then, and especially in the last few weeks. Last week, Portugal's parliament approved a measure that would legalize gay marriage. It would make Portugal the 6th country in Europe to allow gay marriage. The first gay marriage might take place as soon as April of this year. Portugal is considered one of the most conservative Catholic countries in Europe, and interestingly enough, this decision was made just before a visit by the Pope. Now, you were recently in Iceland and Sweden. Do you know what the gay marriage laws are there?
No idea.
I had a list here of European countries that allowed full gay marriage, but there's a lot of other configurations of two people of the same sex being together, and I'm not sure where those two countries fit in. We should look that up for next week. To update the situation in the U.S., currently New Hampshire, Iowa, Connecticut, Massachusetts, and Vermont allow gay marriage. And Lewis, there was a lot of discussion when Massachusetts legalized gay marriage that things would just completely, the wheels would fall off and it just wouldn't be a good situation. And it actually hasn't happened, right? I mean, I haven't seen, because of two men being married, anything happening that in any way affected my day-to-day life.
Right. I mean, our area in general and, a few other select areas, definitely when marriage was legalized, a lot of gay couples flocked to those areas from other states.
If anything, economically, it may have even helped the region.
Right. But is the state falling apart because of this? No.
Nothing. I'm able to drive around without the roads giving way. I'm able to go to any business that was previously open and buy whatever goods. All the deliveries seem to be made. The mail system is working. Police are still working fine. I just don't know.
No cataclysmic events.
No cataclysmic events, and no indication that any are on the way. Washington, D.C. could begin as early as February. We know that legislation has passed and is kind of working its way through the system there. Here's something interesting. In New York City, same-sex marriages from other states or countries are actually recognized, but they aren't performing same-sex marriages there, which is interesting because it means that a couple can get married wherever gay marriage is legal in another country or in the U.S. states that allow it, move to New York City, and for purposes of taxes, legal, hospital visits, so on and so forth, they would have all of the same rights that a heterosexual married couple would in New York, even though you can't actually get married in New York, which is kind of interesting.
Right. I think, I think ultimately perhaps not all states will allow gay marriage, but I'm willing to bet that, at least they'll be recognizing marriage, for gay couples like New York is. And
it seems that we talk all the time about there's going to be more and more states allowing gay marriages to be performed. That is kind of an in-between, right? So it may happen that some states will say, from now on, people who have pre-existing gay marriages, if they move here, it will be treated as a full marriage between a heterosexual couple, but we are not going to perform them. And that might actually be a door opener in many states.
Right. Well, it'll keep people in your state, Like I said, we had a lot of gay couples moving here. Well, if it doesn't make sense for you to move or financially you can't do it, okay, you take a little trip to Massachusetts or wherever, perform the ceremony, then go back home.
Now, I don't know the rules. Do you have to have some kind of residency for some amount of time? I don't know if somebody who only lives
I don't think you do.
You can just come to Massachusetts and get a marriage certificate. I don't think that that's the case. I think a lot more people would be doing it. People would just fly in, get married, and fly out if that was the case.
I guess we'd have to look this up.
We do have to look it up, but I think we can agree, even though it may not be happening as fast as some people would like, the fact that we already have 5 and almost, if you count D.C., 6 states in the U.S. where you can get married to your gay partner is huge progress, given that since 1776, for 200 and I don't know 30 years, there were 0 states. It's and if you look at it in those broader terms, it's accelerating pretty quickly.
Right. And we could also say that. Well, we could say the same thing about voting rights or a slew of issues like this.
Right. It seems that when we look at it, when nothing happens for a couple of years, people get discouraged. But when you look at it in the grander scheme of since the country was formed, there has been real advancement in the last few years, and last 40 to 50 years on a lot of issues.
Oh, definitely.
Especially if we look at African Americans being considered 3/5 of a person. The amount of change that has taken place in the last short period of time is incredible. That is all the time we have this week. Let me mention again, WPVM in Asheville, North Carolina. Welcome. They are airing the show, and we're thrilled to be on, as well as a number of new television stations in Woburn, Massachusetts, as well as Clinton, South Carolina. Please visit our website, midweekpolitics.com. And for businesses and organizations looking for sponsorship opportunities on Midweek Politics, also visit midweekpolitics.com and click on sponsorship along the top. I'm David Pakman. Thanks for listening, and we will be back with more next week.
Midweek Politics with Dave Pakman on midweekpolitics.com.